All right, welcome. I have a great opportunity today to talk to some Kia e-Niro or Niro EV, depending on, I think, what year they were made, but a couple owners of the Niro, and talk to them about the day-to-day experience of living with the Niro. I got to drive it for a little bit, really enjoyed it, but that's not what it's like living with it day to day. So excited to hear their stories. And we've got Loring in the middle here and Brian on the other side. And gentlemen, if you could just introduce yourselves and tell us how long you've had your Niro.
Sure. So my name is Loring, and my wife and I leased our Niro starting at the end of September this past year, 2021. It is a 2022 Niro EV.
Okay. So similar to the one I drove. And Brian, how about you?
I've got a 2019 Kia Niro that I picked up in, December of 2020. So I bought new, but it had been on a lot for a while before that. So.
Okay. And did you guys both pick them up here in Minnesota, or did you have to get them from out of state?
No, I got mine from Georgia. I purchased it online, found a good deal, and had them ship it up here. It's too bad that we don't have more dealerships here. Hopefully, with the changes to our California standards, we'll see more of that going forward, more local availability.
Yeah, hopefully. Loring, you got yours here?
Yeah, we're leasing from Kia Mankato.
Oh, okay. Great. Is this your first EV, Brian? I'll start with you.
No, I bought a Nissan Leaf in 2013 and had that, sold it finally in 2021. So I had a little overlap where I still had them both. But yeah, 8 years with the Leaf, and I loved that as well.
Great. Yeah. So this is a pretty big upgrade from a 2013 Leaf.
In terms of range, a huge upgrade. Yeah. And some other features, power and... Yeah, I enjoyed the Leaf very much, but this is definitely a step up to a more modern EV.
Yeah, great. And Loring, is this your first?
No. Last year, also, just a few months before the Niro, we bought a used 2012 Nissan Leaf. We wanted to experiment, and we didn't want to sink everything we had into a car all at once. And so we were able to find a used Leaf at a bargain price. So we tried it out. We liked the feel of electric, but yeah, range is a serious issue with the older models. And so when Niro came available, we test drove a whole lot of other cars as well. I'm sure you're going to get to that. But when we came to the Niro, we said, yeah, this is the deal we want.
Yeah, and so I guess that's really leads in well to my next question is, what made you choose the Niro? You guys both had Leafs and, again, presumably did some test drives and things. So what was it that really struck you about the Niro that this is going to be the one?
Absolutely. I actually didn't have a chance to test drive it first, but it read so much good feedback on them that I felt pretty confident. Was looking either for a Niro or a Kona at the time, and there were some better deals out there on the Niro, so I ended up going with that.
Yeah, that was probably a good choice because I think they're slightly more efficient too. So.
They may be, and they dodged the battery issue that affected both the Konas and the Bolts, of course.
Yeah, that's right. Loring, how about you?
We test drove a number of vehicles. We test drove a Bolt and the new Leaf and the ID4. We originally thought we would want the Bolt, but at the time our credit was not quite where we needed it to be to get the good deals being offered on Bolts. That would have been about a year ago. And right about the time we had our credit back in shape where we wanted it, the Niro came along and we tried it. And we said, wow, well, this is even better than any of the other things that we tried out. We liked it better than the ID4. And we didn't trust the Leaf anymore because Nissan doesn't really back up their old Leafs, right? Mm. And so for several reasons, we liked the Niro a lot better. It did not hurt that Kia Mankato really has a lot of EV knowledge. So when we went there, we didn't get any double talk. We didn't have anybody just giving us talking points. The general manager has driven the vehicles quite a bit. Yeah, it was a combination of things. It was the right price, the right time, the right dealership.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That is one of my questions for later is, when you got it, did people know what they were talking about? So,
yeah.
So I guess you test drove a few different ones. Brian, you had experience with the Leaf as well. What stood out to you about the Niro? What was kind of this is the one feature or moment, or was it just the range?
For me, the range was probably the biggest thing. Was really looking forward to being able to do some road trips. Was really impressed with everything I was hearing about the efficiency. I think a lot of people's experience had been at that time and continues to be that it exceeds the EPA rating for its range pretty regularly. So those things together were kind of the big things. And at the time, 2020, the charge rate was still, above average for most options on the market, particularly the more affordable ones. Not in the Tesla range, but a big step up from what a lot of the vehicles supported at the time.
Yeah, back then it was, the Bolt, I think, maxes out at 50 or 55 kilowatts, and the Niro does 77, I believe. Is that right?
72,
could be.
Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a good jump just there. And then, from where the Leaf charges. Loring, how about you? What was the major feature?
Wow, the major one. That's tough. We loved the feel of the cabin. Probably better than most of the other cars, although I will say the Leaf also has kind of the interior that we like a lot. It felt like it had a little more pep, a little more pickup. So I would say efficiency helps the Niro in a couple of ways, right? Not only the range, but you can switch it over into the sport mode and get a lot of pickup out of it instantly if you want to. We usually only use that to have a little fun. Those would be two of the big things, but also another difference between the Niro and the Leaf is the connector type, right? So a CCS instead of CHAdeMO, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it really opens up a lot more options and hopefully more going forward.
Yep. Well, with a Leaf, going with a lease, the one thing that other people, if they're leasing, may want to consider when you take it back to your Niro dealership, your Kia dealership, then you can possibly go with yet a newer Niro or trade up to the EV6, which has been one of the best rated EVs. And Kia Mankato, when they made us our deal on the Niro, they were trying to make room on their lot for some EV6s they had coming in.
Okay.
That was a consideration. We knew the EV6 was on its way, and we knew that it was already being anticipated by the market. So that kind of lines us up for that option when we go into cash in our lease.
Yeah, I really love the look of the EV6, and I've got to see one in person, and I've been in contact with the owner, and that might be coming later. But yeah, it looks really great. One thing I noticed about the Niro is the cabin is incredibly quiet. It's an EV, so you're not going to have motor noise or anything, but it just seems very comfortable and well sealed that it's a pretty quiet, comfortable place to be.
Yeah, I've enjoyed mine. With the pandemic, I haven't put as many miles on as I did in the Leaf over comparable time periods, but I've got about 13,000 on it now, and am absolutely enjoying the ride and the feel of the cabin and the car in general.
Good. Has that been your experience too, Laurie?
Absolutely. Like I said, when we test drove, we could feel the difference between the Niro and the other vehicles right away.
Great. Yeah, one of the other big pluses I noticed was in parking lots especially, but in general, it's got a great turning radius and seems pretty nimble for an otherwise decent-sized crossover.
Yep, they. I think they really got the wheels out to the end of the frame, and it's. Gosh, I think it's a little shorter than a Leaf, despite having
really?
an inside. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have a Model Y, and getting back into that, I'm like, ooh, this is feels much bigger than it really is. I think there's only a 10 or 15 inch difference, but you can really feel it in the tight turning and stuff. Loring, I'll start with you this time. How was your delivery learning curve on the vehicle? And tell me a little bit about the knowledgeable salespeople, or did you still know more than them, or were they pretty up to speed on everything?
No, so that was a pleasant change. The only other dealership we'd been to where people really knew was Dale Chevrolet, but all of the other dealerships, including another Kia dealership, we were telling them things about electric vehicles. We got down to Mankato, and the guy, Matt, the GM there, he knew EVs backward and forward, had owned a Tesla, has driven. He's also GM for Hyundai, so he's got lots of time in EVs.
Good.
He's very friendly. When we got there, they had the car ready to go. We were in and out in minutes. So yeah, and everything was delivered as promised. I've even mentioned before, a lot of dealerships, you show up, you go to collect your car, and they want to upsell. They want to upsell warranty, they want to upsell service, they want to upsell all sorts of other things. Not these guys. They had our paperwork ready to sign, and it was exactly price and features as promised. So just excellent experience from top to bottom.
Wow, that's fantastic to hear. But you had to go through to a couple dealerships to find them, or did somebody recommend them, or how did you find them in Mankato?
Well, so my wife would laugh. I am an obsessive shopper when it comes to the big ticket. So I had insisted on test driving everything we could. In fact, the Mach-E was the only thing we couldn't find at the time, so we never got into one of those. So we had actually already driven a Niro at a nearby dealership. We live in Minneapolis. I won't name the other one. I'm not interested in putting anybody down. But yeah, we had driven the Bolt, the ID4, a Niro, and the Leaf, and we'd driven a newer Leaf. And so at that point, we felt comfortable that we had gotten a good comparison of all of those. And then just out of the blue one day, this fellow from Mankato, his name is Matt, had put up on the Facebook group, MNEV Owners Facebook group, that he had a lease special going on, and my wife spotted it, of all things, and not me, and she has reminded me of that several times. We contacted him, and I think within 2 days we were down there and had the Niro, and we were ready to go.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, it's great when you can have a good experience like that. Brian, with yours, ordering it from out of state, how did that go? And did they even, did they know they had a treasure down there, or did they just be like...
not.
Okay.
I found a great deal on it. It was a little before some of this supply shortage, so that wasn't a factor, but being the previous model year, they had knocked $7,000 off the MSRP, and then I was still eligible for a Kia financing deal at the time that knocked another $500 off. So I paid about that brought the initial price down to about $33 for a Niro EX Premium. So
wow.
All decked out with all the goodies, and even then with the transport to Minnesota, it still came in under 35. So
Wow, fantastic. And
And
then,
that's prior to the federal tax credit. So another 7,500 off of that
yeah, at tax time.
at tax time.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a wait.
Yeah,
But,
you got to wait for it, but yeah, that's fantastic. Did the folks in Georgia do anything as far as talking you through, like, okay, this is an EV, this is a little different, here's what to expect with the Niro, or did they just say, you'll figure it out?
They didn't do too much for me. In part, I think that was because coming in, I was very knowledgeable, had already had,
Okay.
7 years of EV ownership and done a lot of research. But it was a little bumpy doing some of it over the phone primarily. Not a super smooth process to purchase out of state from just a local dealership in the Atlanta area.
Well, that's too bad, but you did get it, and it sounds like you got a pretty good price. So
I did, I think.
and that's something. Lauren, I'll start with you here. Do you charge at home, or do you use public charging, anything like that? What's your routine for charging up the Niro?
We have a pretty nice mix. So we have a garage to park in. We don't have a level 2 charger, but we find that our 120 volt outlet is more than what we usually need. We don't drive many miles in a day, so most days we're able to make do with a standard outlet. However, my wife has a level 2 charger at work that's free to use. There's just a lot of competition to get to it. And then on occasion when we really need to get a charge, we have changed our shopping patterns to go to places like Rosedale Mall or the Quarry, both of which have free level 2 charging. And there's a Hy-Vee grocery store quite close to us. We switched to their pharmacy, and so we'll plug into free level 2 charging at those places.
Yeah, that's good to take advantage of those opportunities where they are. Brian, what's your charging situation?
I'm in a similar boat. I've been an EV owner for 8.5 years now, and have done it all with just a level 1 trickle charger. And generally, I've always found that it meets my needs. Again, probably 100 miles a day is an unusual thing for me. And then on those road trips, when I had the Leaf, it was always rent a car, which was a fine solution as well. But now I have taken my first long road trip for Thanksgiving this past year in my Niro, and the DC chargers worked great for that. Certainly adds some time to the trip, but it made it very doable still.
Well, that's fantastic you were able to do that. On that trip, did you find any hotels with charging, or did you just kind of get whatever you could along the way and just go straight through?
A mix of both. On the way down, I did stay overnight at a hotel that had free level 2 charging in Joplin, Missouri. There was a Residence Inn in Joplin, Missouri that had a level 2 there for free. So overnight, that took me from, I was maybe down to 10% and was all charged up by the time I needed to leave.
Nice. And did you find that on PlugShare or through the car, or how did you find that?
PlugShare. I have found PlugShare to be excellent. Kind of our best resource. Not always the slickest interface, but it's really effective. And with people using it, you get that good feedback on what people's experiences have been with different chargers.
Yeah. Where did you start and where did you end that road trip?
Yes, so I started here in Minneapolis and drove down to Hot Springs, Arkansas. So let's see, round trip, including maybe 150 miles of driving around locally while I was there. It came out to 1,865 miles. Went down one weekend, back the next. Primarily charged at fast chargers along the way. Stopped at the Trails Travel Center in Albert Lea. And then my next stop on the way down was in Altoona, right near Des Moines, where they had a a free 150 watt kilowatt charger. So that was a nice find. And then Bethany, Missouri, and then Kansas City, and Clarksville, Arkansas before arriving. And that on the way down, that was a night in a hotel at Joplin as well, where they had the charger.
Were those mostly like Electrify America, or just kind of whatever fast charger was around?
A little bit of everything. The Albert Lee is a ZEF.
Yep.
That was free at the time. I don't know if it still is or not. In Altoona near Des Moines, it was, I think, part of Greenlots in terms of the connection, at least, through Mid-America Energy. Then ChargePoint in Bethany, and then Electrify America in Kansas City and in Arkansas.
Great. Yeah. And did you find all of those through PlugShare, or was that like through both with, kind of in conjunction with the car? Or
I used PlugShare for all of it. I wanted to, carefully map it all out ahead of time to make sure I didn't get caught off guard. But yeah, then mostly used PlugShare, occasionally switched over to the apps that for the network that they were a part of, initiating the charge. And,
sure.
Once I was doing that, it was sometimes easier to use their navigation to get there.
Yeah. Loring, how about you? Have you done any trips or any like longer adventures, or mostly just stuff around town so far?
Just recently, we did a road trip with the Niro. A while back, we rented a car to do a fairly long trip out into the wilderness, so to speak, southwest Minnesota. So we rented something for that trip, but going up to Duluth, we took our Niro. We used PlugShare, but we also consulted the Facebook group. There are a lot of people who road trip, and we just asked if anybody has any recommendations. And we're glad we did. Even with PlugShare, we found that it guided us in one case to a charger that was out of service, and that wasn't obvious from the check-ins, right? You have to rely on the crowdsourcing.
Right.
If you I would tell anybody who hasn't done a road trip, make sure you check all of the check-ins and reviews to see what they say. A lot of times the chargers will say, we'll have both CHAdeMO and CCS, and one may be working and the other is not. So Moose Lake was where they recommended, where the people on Facebook recommended we stop, and sure enough, that was great in two ways. When we got there, the fast charger was occupied, but there was a nearby brewery where that was able to have food delivered, and the kids were hungry. So we went in there. They had a free level 2 charger at the brewery. So we first connected the card there while we ordered a pizza. And then the fast charger freed up a little bit later on. So we said, well, the heck with it. And I took the car down to the fast charger. We probably didn't even need that. The level 2 we were at probably gotten us charged up sufficient to finish the trip. But yeah, that was a good experience there, largely thanks to the Facebook group.
Well, good. Yeah. I've used a Better Route Planner. That's another good resource for trip planning. And you can put in different vehicles and things like that. It doesn't have the crowdsource thing, so if it doesn't know a charger's down, that's where PlugShare, if people are using it right, it's a great resource to know, hey, this was working until yesterday and now it's not, or it wasn't working but now it's back up. You can kind of learn that stuff. So. And
I do like Route Planner, though. I just recently tried that for the first time, and it seems like a good tool about choosing not just locations, but the best locations in terms of maximizing your charging rate, I think. So,
yeah, I don't think I tried this in the Niro. I don't think I tried planning a route through the navigation system in there, but at least not one that would require charging. Does it do any of that in the computer in the car?
I haven't used it too much. I tend to rely more on my cell phone, which I'll hook up with the Android Auto on the long trips. I think it will, give you warnings if it thinks you're going beyond range, if you're planning beyond range, and I believe it does also make some recommendations about places to charge, but I haven't had a lot of experience using that.
Okay.
I will say that the car, since Brian mentioned it, the car saved my butt one day. And using PlugShare, for some reason it misread my location. It told me that a fast charger was nearby, and the car warned us we were going to run out of charge before we got to a fast charger, and we should find something quick. So we ended up going to a level 2 to get topped up a little bit before then moving on to the fast charger we had thought was within range.
Well, yeah, that's good. That can be very important at the right moments, especially in the winter here. And yeah, I've had some error messages come up on my car too, and like, either it's no problem, I'm close to someone's cabin, or I need to slow down right now. So yeah, having that kind of thing is good to know. On these longer trips, how did you guys find the seat comfort, storage space for, if you got families with you on these trips? How did you find those aspects of the vehicle?
I've watched your video on the Niro, and I would agree with you that the seats are a little firmer than I would prefer. I would say that my seat for the Nissan Leaf was a little more comfortable, but not bad. And I have the leather. I don't know how it compares, if yours was leather or upholstery, but
I believe it was leather, if I'm remembering correctly.
But other than that, I found it spacey enough. I had room for myself as the driver. I didn't have a family with me, but I do have a dog, so I had the seats folded down, and they go nearly flat, and there was plenty of room for her to spread out as well.
Well, that's good. Dogs can eat up a lot of space, and the stuff they need can eat up space too. Loring, how was your experience there?
Well, I'll agree with Brian on the seats. Since we both have a Leaf, I will say, yeah, I think the Leaf seats are a little more comfortable. But in terms of space, our kids like the back seat of the Niro better than they do the Leaf. And also inside the hatchback, in terms of space, the Niro seems to offer more space. And the Leaf has this odd divider inside the hatchback, at least on our model, that tends to be kind of a pain in the neck if we put anything tall inside of it. Whereas the Niro not only doesn't have that divider, but it has a nice space underneath the floor covering that you can tuck things into, and you can tuck quite a bit into there.
Yeah, it seemed the one I was looking at had, I think, the charging connectors and things in there, but there was more space for, more things if you wanted to throw them in there. Yeah, I was wondering, like, the seats didn't seem bad, and, the upside of EVs is that because you have to charge, you do get to get out and stretch every now and again, so hopefully that isn't too bad, but...
And the Leaf had very comfortable seats. I had people, Bolt drivers, sit in it, and they liked the Leaf seats much better as well.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't driven either the Bolt or the Leaf, believe it or not, which is seems crazy. Like, why haven't I yet? But yeah, I know Bolt owners just say the seats at least in past versions, the Bolt seats were pretty awful. So I'm glad to hear the Leaf's got good ones. So your day-to-day driving, both of you, sounds like it's pretty much just around town, not anything major. You're not going to Duluth every week or, things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, short commutes, and with the pandemic, it's even less.
Yeah. All right, so now we'll get into the big stuff here. What is your least favorite feature, or are there any issues you've had with the Niro?
I haven't had any issues with it. The things that I would say are my least favorite, from a day-to-day perspective, maybe the firmness of the seats, a minor thing, but, it's nice to have the comfy seats. Then the other two things are pretty minor, silly things, but they're app connectivity. There's the subscription if you want to continue your cell phone app with anything close to full functionality. It's like, I don't know, it's like $15 or $16 a month, which seems awfully excessive to be able to turn on your AC or lock your doors. So there's that, and they skimped on the rear view mirror. They used a version that didn't have the home link, the programmable garage door openers built in and things like that. But that's really about it. That and the faster charging rate would be nice now too, given the advances that have been made with the newer models.
Sure. Well, none of that sounds too bad. So, Loring, how has yours been?
So most of it's nitpicky, but I'll go ahead and list out a couple of our little minor peeves. But the one big one is no true one pedal driving. So I believe in the Bolt you actually do get one pedal driving, and we were looking forward to that. That's not available for the Niro. That said, the Apple CarPlay. So we have iPhones. The Apple CarPlay comes and goes just a little too easily, and when it goes and then comes back, you have to pick out CarPlay again when it reappears. So that's kind of a pain in the neck. But the biggest one for me personally is you can select your driver, which seems like a good thing. But the only thing that gives you in terms of what it remembers about the driver are your radio presets. And so something that I would like to see, you can use the paddles, as with other cars, to select the amount of regenerative braking. I would think that they would allow you to set like a preferred default amount of regenerative braking, and we would set it to maximum, of course, given that we'd like the one pedal driving. But you can't do that. You can't set it to, well, we'd like this, or we'd like always turn on the adaptive cruise control. We love that it has all the bells and whistles, like adaptive cruise and blind spot detection and so forth. That was a big selling point for us. The fact that some of this does not come on automatically, that you can't select those features to come back with a subscription, is an issue. And the only other thing, my wife has noticed that the range gets chewed up faster than you're actually traveling, right? So, and I believe this is normal with electric cars. We experience it really badly with the Leaf, with the depleted battery. We would like to see the battery management systems catch up with the idea that if you are traveling faster or in cold weather, that it's going to use up range faster than what's reflected in the remaining range, right? So if it says you've got 100 miles left, but really you can only go 80 or 90 because you're either traveling fast or it's cold weather or for some other reason, it would be nice if there was some AI in there that would detect what your driving pattern was and adjust the range left. But again, that's real nitpicky. The only big issue we have is the lack of one pedal driving.
I would second some of that. The guessometer, it's a little slow to react. So my first trip to Des Moines, I'm going freeway speeds, and most in general, I do lots of around town, mixed metro freeway, but not the 70 miles an hour all the time. And for the first hour and a half, it looked like I was going to make it no problem. And then all of a sudden it decided it was time to catch up with my current style, and it plummeted pretty quickly. But then it was predictable then, and I found on my trip to Arkansas that if I got a sense for what my average consumption rates had been, that I could outthink it and know if it was being a little optimistic about where I was going to get to.
Sure, yeah, that is, the first highway trip you think, oh, I'm going to get all of the range promised, or more maybe, and then you end up going in and out of trucks and things like that, and half the time you're between 75 and 80, and your range doesn't quite stretch like you thought it would. That
two more quick things in response.
Sure.
I think you can actually go in and set defaults for some of those things you were talking about, the regen levels for the different settings. Now, you probably can't do different ones for different drivers, I would guess, but you can go in and change, at least in the 2019, the default regenerative level. I typically put it onto auto. They don't advertise that well. I don't know if you stumbled into that and used that much, but if you hold the left paddle, it'll go into auto mode and use the same technology as the adaptive cruise control to decide how much regeneration to do. And for one pedal, you can't do one pedal, but you could do one pedal in one paddle. You can bring the car to a full stop by holding the left paddle, and that will not engage the friction brakes, but it'll bring you to a full stop without using the brakes. And it also then puts it into auto hold for that instance. I think Brian mentioned in his video that the auto hold function that you can turn on and off as just a setting, that it doesn't retain it. That's one of the things that others have said as well, that there really is no way to get it to just leave that on. But if you bring it to a stop with the paddle, it will automatically go into that auto hold mode for that stop.
Yeah, that's good to know. I don't know if I made it all the way to 0, but I know there was once where I slowed down with regen, must have been almost to a stop, and then I thought I was in auto hold and took my foot off the brake. Or no, I didn't. I took my hand off the paddle, and then it started going forward again. Like, nope, friction brakes. Then the auto hold worked, but that definitely could have been user error. Okay, now the good parts. What are your favorite features on it? The things you love most about the Niro?
No, that's great. The range has to be huge for us. Cabin comfort. But while I would say the seats might be better in the Leaf, we certainly are very happy with the interior of the Niro. So between those two things, those would be highlights for us. It is, we find, just the right size for us overall. We used to have a big van. We have 2 kids, and so we used to have a Toyota Sienna, and so we would like to have a second car that has that kind of space in it. But for daily use, the Niro is about perfect for us. So I guess that's 3 things.
That's fine. And Brian, for you?
Range and size. So far for me, it's been, a maintenance-free, as I came to expect with my Leaf. I think the only, multi-$100 expense I had while I had the Leaf was replacing the tires. So it seems reliable and low maintenance, fun to drive, plenty of power, and it's well teched out. I don't know if that's in part just being the premium package, but it's got the wireless phone charger and plenty of USB connections and ventilated seats. I'm a big fan of the ventilated seats, and it's just been fun to drive and a good car so far.
Great. Yeah, I don't think I tried the ventilated seats, but does it have heated seats as well? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
yeah.
it did. I think we may have tried those.
Our kids pointed out one of the cars we test drove, and I can't remember which one, had heated rear seats in addition to the heated front seats. They were a little sad that we got the one that didn't have heated rear seats.
Does your Leaf not have heated rear seats? I think
It
mine
does
did.
not.
Well, small sacrifices. We grew up without them. I think they can too.
The heated seats no longer felt like a luxury in the Leaf. Having to moderate my use of the heater with that short range, heated seats became a very important thing to have.
Yeah. One other thing, you were talking about things you can set up. One thing I noticed when we were driving was the adaptive cruise and kind of lane centering stuff seemed to work pretty darn well, but it's a lot of steps to turn it on. At least that was my experience. Is that something you can configure to, this is like my standard, and once I put adaptive cruise on or whatever, some of that stuff will come on faster? Are there shortcuts, or is it just a process you get used to?
For me, I guess it's just a process I've gotten used to. I feel like turning it on and setting it seemed pretty standard compared to other cars I've driven, ICE cars. So, a button to turn it on and a pull down to set it, and then you can adjust it with the little toggle. And I think it remembers the adaptive level I set, though I'm not 100% sure about that. But I think it does.
I don't have more information. I don't find it complicated. But yeah, I wish that it would just automatically come on according to my preference.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure, it's one of those things when you hop into a new car and like suddenly you have to talk about it. Everything seems more complex.
But there are a lot of buttons. I think someone counted them and there was something on the order of, I can't remember if it was 73 or 86 or something like that, but buttons within the reach of the driver for the between the door, the seat, the steering wheel, and the console, both infotainment and the center console. Lots of buttons.
That's another great question. So underneath the center screen, I'm in a little window here, so I got to make this small, but underneath that center screen, there's a row of buttons with some of the same things that are on the touch screen. Which do you guys end up using? Do you use the physical buttons more or stick to the touch screen?
Because we rely so much on our phones and the CarPlay connection, I would say we don't rely on either one a whole lot, but we probably, if we're going to default to one, it'd probably be the physical buttons.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think my button configuration is a little different than the 2022s. So I don't know if I have quite as much redundancy with the smaller screen that's there, but I tend to go with the buttons, even for those that have touchscreen things. I know some of the radio options I can do with touchscreen. Mostly use that if I'm navigating their menu system for system settings or something. Then I'll use the touchscreen.
Yeah, so if you're already in the touchscreen, you stick with that. But if not, then buttons. Okay. Would you guys recommend someone buying a Niro, and who is a good prospective buyer for it?
So number one, yes. Like I say, we checked it out carefully to begin with, so we were pretty confident we were making a good choice. That's only been confirmed. I will say the reason we chose lease, my wife and I had previously been inclined to buy cars. We know that technology is changing fast, so we're in a wait and see mode. In my research, I believe that by 2025, that's when we'll see the most choices out there. But for right now, would I recommend somebody else get the Niro over other cars? Yeah, I think it's an excellent choice. What was part B of your question?
Just kind of who is it a good fit for? Just everybody, or?
Oh boy, I've been a parent of 2 kids now for 10 years, so my ability to relate to to couples and singles is lesser. I don't know. I'd like to see the Mach E before I make a final decision on that. But given the other choices, and there's a lot of fans of the ID4, I will tell you, I strongly preferred the Niro to the ID4. The Bolt was a little bit closer to our expectations, but the Niro still won out for a family car. If it's a small family, I would say that those work quite well. If you're single, then you've got a much wider range of choices, and it really depends on your lifestyle. And I guess I wouldn't feel qualified to recommend unless I knew what somebody was trying to do with their vehicle. But for a small family, the Niro works really, really well.
Brian, how about you?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it'll work great for anyone. The only, hesitation on whether it would be the right choice for someone, I think, is whether, an option like the EV6 ends up being close enough in price that you want some of the newer tech, especially the faster charge rate. But no, I would have absolutely no hesitation about wholeheartedly recommending the Niro to others.
Great.
Yeah, Brian makes a really good point. So I'll defer to him on the EV6. That's a consideration that we didn't have when we were shopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think the price point of that is going to be higher for a while, which means that the Niros that are out there hopefully will come down. If anything can ever come down in price again, we'll see. But yeah, I had a feeling you guys would say, yeah, it's a good buy. Is there anything you guys would like to add? Anything I didn't ask you about, or experiences you've had, good or bad, that you want to share?
Yeah, so bad experience. I think I said what our cons were, and I don't really have anything to add to that. So nothing bad beyond the one pedal. And now I'm going to have to try Brian's suggestion on figuring out one pedal default and using the paddle and the setting. In terms of good experience, just the fact that it is such a good fit for our family, a fit for our garage, right? So again, Brian had already said it fits inside a tighter space, even though it feels nice and big inside. It's just that's it. If I were to say the fit, the way it works for our family, is pretty close to perfect.
Excellent. And Brian, anything else you want to share?
Oh, I'll share just a couple more things. My favorite option that I've added has been my Tux Mat floor protectors. They're laser fit like a WeatherTech or something, but they have a little different strategy about how they go about it. They're a hard shell underneath the actual floor mat, and they seem like they're going to be super durable. I heard some really good feedback about them. They fit like a glove. They are a fantastic choice. I thought of one more downside about my Niro in particular, which I'm not sure how much it impacts things in the end, is that coming from Georgia, it didn't have a heat pump as an option. So someday I'll have to find another Niro driver and take a winter test challenge to see how big a difference that makes in terms of the range and comfort and stuff.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Did you have any problems through the winter as far as keeping it warm?
No, it stayed
I suppose
warm.
Compared to the Leaf, it's...
Yeah, it did great, and still got, pretty good range on those coldest sub-zero days. If I was blasting the heat, I guess I could maybe get it down below 2 miles per kilowatt hour, but in general, on all but those coldest days, it still had very solid range, close to its EPA estimate.
Anything else?
Oh, I did plug in as well. I had gotten what do they call them? The ODB2 Bluetooth connectors. I had one from my Leaf that I saved and have plugged in. There's a Torque Pro app that you can use and download some PIDs that give you information on the battery health and some other things. It's not as well set up as like a Leaf Spy Pro to just be plug and play and you get what everyone would want to see, but with a little bit of fiddling, not too much. You can see the things most people are most worried about. Like, I checked recently the state of health, and it was still at 100%. 18 months after I got it, which is probably, a little over 2 years after it was manufactured. So.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Sometimes those extras can make a big difference, or, some people really love the stats. Other people are like, I just drive it. Don't worry about it. So, well, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. If there's nothing else, I'll let you go, but I just really appreciate hearing this perspective because, like I said, I get in a car and drive it for 20 minutes and go, yeah, seems pretty good. But, that's not a, several months or a couple of years perspective of, living with it, road tripping with it, and all that stuff. So really appreciate it, and you guys taking the time to share your perspective. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for all the great videos. Lots of informative information out there on your pages.
Well, thanks. I try.
Thank you, Brian. It was nice meeting you both.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.